So, we are discussing the features of what it means to be a democracy. So, the third is one person, one vote, and one value. So, in the last chapter, we read about how the struggles for democracy was linked to the demand for universal adult franchise. We saw that how that one should person should be given only right to vote, and one vote of one person should be equal to one only and not be 10 or 100. This principle has now become to be accepted almost all over the world, yet there are many instances of denial of equal right to vote. In Saudi Arabia, women do not have the right to vote. Estonia has made its citizenships rules in such a way that people belonging to Russian majority find it difficult to get the right to vote. So we are seeing the example of Saudi Arabia, where women are not allowed to vote. Estonia, where the people who belong to Russian minority find it very difficult to have the right to vote. And in Fiji, the electoral system is such that the vote of an indigenous Fiji has more value than that of Indian Fijian. So how see they are giving priority to one over the other? So that shouldn't be the case. One person should have the equal vote of all the person should have the weightage of one weight should be equal. The weightage of the weightage of vote should be equal. And democracy is based on the fundamental principles of political equality. We've always talked about political equality. This gives us the third uh, feature of democracy. In a democracy, each adult citizens must have one vote, and each vote must have one value. So this is also included in the definition. Now we shall read more about it in chapter 4. The next feature is rule of law and respect for rights. Zimbabwe, if we talk about Zimbabwe, then Zimbabwe is African country, and it attained independence from white minority rule in 1980. Since then, the country has been ruled by Januf PF, the party that led freedom struggle. Its leaders, Robert Mugabe, has been ruling the country since independence. Election has been have been held regularly and have always won by the party members of Janu PF. So President Mugabe is popular, but also uses unfair means to win elections. Over the years, his government has changed the constitution several times to increase the power of the president and make him less accountable. So that's what happens if there's only rule of one member, or only one party is ruling that country. So that's usually a case that is seen. Then we talk about yeah increase and decreasing the level of accountability. Opposition party workers are harassed, and there are meetings are disrupted. Public protest and demonstrations against the government are declared illegal. There is a law that limits the right to criticize the president. Nobody can easily criticize the president. Televisions and radios are controlled by the government, and only and give only the ruling to party's version. So whatever the party says in the media, that is only right according to here in Zimbabwe. There are independent newspapers, but the government harasses those journalists who go against it. The government has ignored some court judgments that went against it, and has pressurized. So they even pressurized the judges, who are the caretaker of the constitution. The example of Zimbabwe shows that popular approval of the ruler is necessary in a democracy, but it is not sufficient. Yes, we say that the leaders should be chosen by the people, but that is not only but it is not sufficient. That is, you need more things in a democracy than just that the ruler who is governing that particular country is chosen by the people. Popular governments can be undemocratic, because of the practices they use. For example, to win elections, they might use dirty tricks. Popular leaders can be autocratic also. Whatever they say, whatever they want, the way they want to run organizations, businesses, or you talk about the media houses, they will do it according to their wishes. And if you wish to assess a democracy, it is important to look at the election. Elections is a big indicator, that of democracy, how elections are held, whether how many parties are alternative options of political parties are there for the public to choose from, and are there any dirty tricks played by the government who's in power, or who was the last government, or the other uh, methods, illegal methods or unfair means to win the elections are being practiced or not. So, but it is equally important to look before and after the election. There should be sufficient room for normal political activity, including political opposition, in the period before elections. This requires that the state should respect some basic rights of the humans, so of the citizens. They should be free to think, have a public opinion, to express these in public, to form associations, protest, to take political actions. Everyone should have the equal, should be equal in the eyes of the law. These rights must be protected by an independent judiciary whose orders are obeyed by everyone, and we'll read again more about it in the next chapter. So here you can see, at last, one man, one vote here. I liked it better when I was the one and the one vote. So here you can see, maybe he was a politician, that is why he's saying read the cartoon. So the cartoon is about the Iraqi election, held after Saddam Hussein's regime was overthrown. He is shown behind the bars. What is the cartoonist saying here? Compare the message of the cartoonist with the first cartoon in this chapter. So you can see that I liked it better when I was the one man and the one vote. So we've actually studied about what happened in Iraq, how also there was invasion by United States in their country. So we know that how Iraq was Iraq first it was under the rule of England, and it was a colony of England. And after that, when they got the independence in 1930s, so what happened that after that Saddam, there was a lot of military coup in between, in between years from 1930 to 1968, and then also later on. So 1968, Saddam Hussein, there was again this coup, and he got his party Al Ba'ath into this forming the government and everything. It was also a coup, and overthrew the military this thing, and then his party came up. It was not through an election and everything, it was a coup, matlab taking, overthrowing the governance of that country. So now see, when we talk, we said that okay, this has happened, and we say that so the big powerful nations just need a reason sometimes to come and attack a smaller country for various intentions they can have. For example, you can see these are men in army, they are carrying the board of democracy. So why is it the M written in such way? Democracy. So democracy means to to make fun of. So you are actually making fun of democracy. You are saying an external force will come and tell them that, oh, this is how you're supposed to rule, and this is how you're supposed to work in a democratic function, in a democratic principle. And that too, they had their own intentions. They said that Iraq has nuclear weapons, which might be a threat for global peace, and etc. But when United Nations, there was a checking and everything, they said no, they don't have nuclear weapons capacity and everything. And the president of United Nations General Assembly that time was Kofi Annan, and he said that no, but still the US and Britain and all its allies, they went and invaded Iraq and said that no, the global peace is under threat and everything. So even Kofi Annan said that the invasion in Iraq was illegal, and that was wrong. He also said it. So, yeah, why talk about Zimbabwe? I read similar reports from many parts of our country. Why don't we discuss that? So, like Zimbabwe, where this thing, a leader only, there are, he says that he's going to rule, and that's he's going to form the government, and he forms and makes changes, also amends also, in the rules and laws and regulation. There the public against public protest against the government, they are declared illegal, and prisoners, the court judges are this thing, they are pressurized and everything. So that happened in Zimbabwe and everything. So we've seen this. Similarly, there are some conditions that apply to the way a government is run after the elections. How a government, chalo elections are done now, well, how should the government then run after it? A democratic government cannot do whatever it likes simply because it has won an election. It has to respect some basic rules. In particular, it has to respect some guarantees to the minority. It has to appreciate, protect the rights or guarantees, that are given to the minorities. Every major decision has to go through a series of consultations. Every office bearer has certain rights and responsibility. Everybody who's working in the office of the government, they have some rights and responsibilities assigned by the constitution and the law. Each of these is accountable. They are accountable, and not only to the people but also to the other independent officials. We shall read more about this in another chapter. Both these aspects gives us the fourth and final feature. A democratic government rules within limits set. Now we know that the whoever is the government, they cannot just make up their own rules and regulations whichever, suits them. That cannot happen. So the fourth and final feature of democracy is that a democratic government rules within the limits set by the constitution, laws, and citizens' right. So we've seen the four features of a democracy. Whether we talk about that the major decisions are taken by the elected leaders. When we talk about fair and free electoral competition, we talk about one person, one vote, and one value. We talk about rule of law and respect for rights. So now we have seen the four features of democracy. Now let's define, summarize the definition. Let us sum up the discussion so far. We started up with a simple definition that democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. We found that this definition was not adequate unless we explained some of the key words used in it. Through a series of examples, we worked out the four features of democracy as a form of government. Accordingly, democracy is a form of government. So these are very important. This one, the fourth thing, they are elected by the people, take all the major decisions. Elections offer a choice. There's a choice and fair opportunity for the people to change the current rulers. There's a choice, and this choice and opportunity is available to all the people, on a equal basis. No one has more weightage to their vote. The exercise of this choice leads to a government limited by basic rules. Limited, the government is limited, by basic rules of the constitution and citizens' rights. So this cartoon we can see, do no evil. Here you can see Yahoo, Google, Cisco. I think it's Cisco, yeah. So it's in Yahoo, Google. You can see maybe a person who's standing here, and these are it's a military vehicle which is coming. Okay, you can see weapon here, you can see antennas and weapon again here, and they are coming. Then this person is facing them. They're facing the military vehicle. So what does it read? Chinese government blocked free flow of information on the internet by placing restrictions on popular websites like Google and Yahoo. The image of tanks and an unarmed student reminds the reader of the major events which took in a recent Chinese history. Find out the event. So this image actually is, very famous. This comes from China, and where the information on the internet was had restrictions on by the government of China on websites like Google, Yahoo, and there you can see an unarmed student standing right there, facing the military. You can read about this story, Google it. Read these five examples of working or denial of democracy. Match these with the relevant feature of democracy issued above. So you can see example: King of Bhutan has declared that in future he will be guided by the advice given by him by the elected uh, representatives. So what we are saying that, what is here then, it is major decisions by elected people. Many Tamil workers who migrated from India were not given the right to vote in Sri Lanka. So here we can say, one person, one right, and one value. The king of Nepal imposed a ban on political gathering, demonstrations, and this thing. The king of Nepal imposed a ban on political gatherings, demonstrations, and rallies. So the respect for rights, that is there. Indian constitution held that the dissolution of Bihar assembly was unconstitutional. This is rule of law. And here political parties in Bangladesh have agreed that a neutral government should rule the country at the time of elections. So fair and free elections, we're talking about major decisions by the elected party. Workers are not, they are not having, not given the right. Then here it is one person, one right, and then public gathering, and this thing opposed. This is respect for rights here. So this is the match the following. So why do we've seen the features of democracy? So why, in the end, the question that comes is that, why do we need democracy? Is it not working if we do not have the democracy? So let's read about it. An argument broke out in Madam Lindo's class. She had finished teaching the previous section on what is democracy, and asked the students if they thought democracy was the best form of government. So there's a discussion going on in the class, that is democracy the best form of government, and everyone had something, so had to say. So let's see, debating merits of democracy. What are the benefits of having a democratic government, a democratic country? So one, Yolanda says, we live in a democratic country. We read in the last chapter that all over the world people want democracy. Countries that were not democratic earlier becoming democratic now. All great people have once said that things about them, what have said nice things about democracy. Isn't it obvious that democracy is the best? Do we need to debate this? So he's saying, do we even need to debate when the great people, great leaders, have said so much nice things, and the world is actually moving towards being more and more democratic every day. So Tankini says that, but Langdo ma'am had said that we should not accept something just because it is famous, just because everyone accepts it. Isn't it possible that everyone is following a wrong path? So yes, she's saying this student is saying that a very good point. It doesn't make sense that if all the, if there are 9 people in the class, then if all the 8 students are bullying the ninth student, it doesn't make the 8 students right. It does not make that the 8 students are right because they are in a majority, or they are bullying the ninth person. That does not work like that. Jenny says, yes, it is actually a wrong path. What has democracy brought to our country? So they're comparing it to our country. More than half a century of democracy, and there's so much poverty in the country. So another student says that, what has democracy got to do with it? So they're saying, how can you link the democracy and poverty? Do we have poverty because we are democratic, or do we have poverty despite being a democracy? So these are two different questions. That, do we have poverty because we are democratic, or should we question that even after being a democratic country we still have poverty? So that's a very legit question that has been raised here. I want to be in Langdong's madam's class. This that sounds like a democratic classroom, doesn't it? So they're saying that, this girl is saying, I want to be in madam's class. That sounds such a democratic class, because people are discussing and giving out their opinions. And everything. So Jenny says that, whatever, how does it make a difference? The point is that this cannot be the best form of government. Democracy is all about chaos, instability, corruption, hypocrisy. Politicians fight among themselves. Who cares for the country? So she's saying that it is all about chaos, instability, hypocrisy, and they do not even care about the people. All they care is about themselves. The politicians keep fighting amongst themselves. So Poyman says that, so what should we have instead? Go back to the British rule, invite some kings to rule this country. And that's what another student says. So the other student, Rose, says that, I do not know. I think what this country needs is a stronger leader, someone who does not have to bother about elections in parliament. One leader should have all the powers. He should be able to do whatever is needed in country's interest, and that alone can remove corruption and poverty from this country. Someone shouted, "This is called dictatorship." So Hugh says that, what if that person starts using all these powers for himself and his family? What is if he is corrupt himself? Rose, I am speaking only of the honest, sincere, and strong leaders. But that is not a fair. That is not a fair. So you are comparing a real democracy with an ideal dictatorship. That point has to be very sorry. So we have a very strong point that's come up here, that you're comparing a real democracy with an ideal dictatorship. Um, we should compare an ideal with an ideal, the real with the real. Go and check the record of dictators in real life. They are most corrupt, selfish, and brutal. This is it's just that we don't get to know about it, and what is worse, you can't even get rid of them. So, Madam Lingdon was listening to this discussion with interest. She's the teacher. Now she stepped in. I am delighted to see all of you. To see you all arguing so passionately. I don't know who is right and who is wrong. This is for you to settle, but I did feel that you all wanted to speak your mind. You may have felt very bad if someone tried to stop you, or if someone punished you for saying what you felt. What would you be able to do in a country that is not democratic? Is it a good argument for democracy? So she says that you all are shouting right now and saying that, no, no, these are the points, this is called that, and this is called, and expressing your views, and this is only you are able to do it because it's a democratic country. So isn't that a good argument that a country should be a democratic? Whereas, what are the arguments against democracies? We've first talked about the merits of democracy. Now we are saying that, what are the demerits of having a democratic country? This conversation has most of the arguments that we routinely hear against democracy. Let us go over of these one of these arguments. Leaders keep changing in a democracy. There, this leads to instability. Democracy is all about political competition. It's all about competition and power play. There's no scope for morality. There's no scope for morality. People use dirty tricks to win elections and everything, because there's no certainty of how many years will the person be in power, and the greed for power. So many people have to be consulted in democracy. That leads to delays. There is delays in making important decisions for the country. Okay, democracy leads to corruption, for it is based on electoral competition, and ordinary people don't know what is good for them. They don't know what is good them, whether they'll able to make the judgment of whatever they should not decide anything. So they said that they should not decide anything because they don't know what is good or what is bad for them. Ordinary people do not know what is good or bad them. They should not decide anything. Are there some other arguments against democracy that you can think of? Which of these arguments applies mainly to democracy? Which of these applies to misuse? So we are saying that some of these are not about democracy. It is about misuse of which can happen in any form of government. Which do you think agree? So. In any form, see, corruption can happen in any form of government. Unelected leaders, they might not know what is interest. That can also happen in any power. mm, Delays to can happen in any, this thing, in any situation, in any form of government. And in instability, even if chalo there's one dictator, there might always be other parties or extremist, or small in yeah, this thing in the country, groups which are against the government. So these are also powers of misuse. And not only that, these are listed here, they're only applicable for a democratic country. That's not true. Clearly, democracy is not a magical solution for all the problems. It has not ended poverty in our country and in other parts of the world. Democracy as a form of government only ensures that people take their own decisions. So there's this thing that's saying that, people, they are saying that, for one thing, sure, that democracy is not helping uh, come out of poverty, and the only thing that it ensures is that people are able to make the decisions. This does not guarantee them that their decisions will be good, and whether this decision to make or whatever they've decided, whether it's good or bad, they don't know what will be the outcome. People can make mistakes. Involving the people in these decisions does lead to delays in decisions. So of course there is a delay in decision making and everything, that cannot be said. uh, it is also true that democracy leads to frequent changes in leadership. Of course, there is a change in leadership because one party which is in power right now might not be in power after the next 5 years. Sometimes this can lead to, there can be setbacks, in big decisions, and affect the government's efficiency also. These arguments show that democracy of the kind we see many not be the ideal form, of course, and these are just pointing that democracy is not the ideal form of government. But this is not a question we face in real life. These are not the questions we face in real life. The real question we face is different. Is democracy better than any other form that are there for us to choose from? Is there anything a better, that we can choose from, as a form of government? Do you have anything better for that? Why should we have why should we not have democracy, and do we have any other alternative? So that's the more important question. So now we've seen that what are the points. These are the points that says that we should not have democracy. It has done no good to us, and everything. So now we have to debate that why do we need democracy in the country. So let's see. China famine of 1958 to 61 was the worst recorded famine in the world. It's nearly 3 crore people. 3 crore is a big number. People died in this famine. During those days, India's economic condition was not much better than China. So they were India and China were rather maybe like same level of economic condition. There no one was better than each other. Matlab, in comparison, they were equally at the same level. Yet India did not have a famine of the kind China did. Even after that, it was only China which had suffered famine and not India. Economists think that this was a result of different government policies in the two countries. The existence of a democracy in India made the Indian government respond to to food scarcity in a way that the Chinese government did not. So one of the reasons we are saying that why China suffered famine and not India is that because the existence of democracy in India. They point out that no large scale famine has ever taken place in an independent and democratic country. If China too had multi-party system and opposition party and press free and a free press to criticize the government, then so many people may not have died. So they are saying that if there would have been people to criticize or question them, then maybe so many people, like 3 crore people, wouldn't have died. This example brings out one of the reasons why democracy is considered the best form of government, and this is the reason why democracy is the best form of government. Democracy is better than any other form of government in responding to the needs of people. So it responds to the needs of people. A non-democratic government and may and can respond to the people's need, but it all depends on the wishes of the people who rule. If the rulers don't want, they don't have to act according to the wishes of the people. A democracy requires that the rulers have to attend to the needs of the people. They have to meet the needs of the people, of their citizens. A democratic government is better government because it is more accountable. It is more responsible, answerable to the people, and that's the form of government, a democratic government. So this is important. There's another reason why democracy should lead to better decisions than any other non-democratic government. Democracy is based on the consultation and discussion. There's discussion and consultation. Consultation in a democratic government. As we saw in the case of this example in this debate. That was going in the class. Okay, so there's a democratic decision always involves many person discussions and meetings. When a number of people put their heads together, they are able to point out possible mistakes in any decisions. This takes time, but there's a big advantage in taking time over important decisions. The time reduces the chance of rash or responsible decisions. Thus, democracy improves the quality of decision making. Why? What would have happened in India if India was not a democracy? Could we have stayed together as a single nation? Saying, can could India, be still together the way it is if we were not a democratic country? So this cartoon is from Brazil. You can see this, maybe it's an army officer or a general here, who's who can you can see a skeleton inside his this uniform. Let's see. This is a cartoon from Brazil, a country that has long experience of dictatorship. So Brazil has had a long experience of dictatorship, matlab ruled by a single person. It is entitled The Hidden Side of Dictatorship. Which hidden side does the cartoon depict? Is it necessary for every dictatorship to have a hidden side? Find this about the dictator. Find out the dictators discussed in the first chapter, and it's possible about Abacha in Nigeria and Marcos in Philippines. So you can uh, the two dictators, of Nigeria and Philippines, you can discuss. So here it the skeleton signifies that how many people have been killed under the dictatorship. This is related to the third argument. Democracy provides a method to deal with differences and conflicts. In any society, people are bound to have differences and opinions, in opinions and interests. These differences are particularly sharp in a country like ours, which has an amazing social diversity. Our social diversity is amazing. There are different people with different opinions, culture, way of living. People belong to different region, religion, caste, different languages, practice different religion, and have different castes. They look at the world very differently and have different preferences. The preferences of one group can clash with those of other groups. How do we resolve such a conflict? The conflict can be resolved by brutal power. Whichever group is more powerful will dictate its terms, and others will have to accept it. But that would lead to resentment and unhappiness. Different groups may not be able to live together for long in such a way. Democracy provides the only peaceful solution, to this problem. In democracy, no one is a permanent winner, no one is permanent loser. Different groups can live with one another peacefully. In a diverse country like India, democracy keeps a country together. So it is democracy that is keeping a diverse country like India together. These three arguments were about the effects of democracy on the quality of government and social life. The quality, we're talking about the quality of government and social life. But the strongest argument for democracy is that it's not about what the democracy does to the government, it's about what democracy does to the citizens. So it is what the role of democracy plays in the lives of citizens that is more important. Even if democracy does not bring about better decisions and accountable government, it is still better than any form of government. It is still better than any form of government. Democracy enhances the dignity of citizens, the way of living. It increases that. As discussed above, democracy is based on the principle of political equality. We are talking about political equality, that people have equal say on recognizing that the poorest and the least educated has the same status as the rich and the educated. Nobody is left behind because they're rich or poor. They are less educated or more educated. People are not subject of the rulers, they are the rulers themselves. So people, they are not treated as subject, but they are treated as the rulers. Even when they make mistakes, they are responsible for their conduct.